Be required to evacuate the building, please leave the room by the door and fire escape to the staircase. Please hold both handrails in case the stairs are wet or slippery. If anyone is unable to use the stairs, please allow the others to exit the room before they go to the fire escape door where they can be given assistance. Our assembly point will be in the public car park at the side of the Civic Suite. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Okay. Apologies from absence. We had one some weeks ago from John Mason, one yesterday from Leslie Butcher, and unfortunately Jerry Gibson has had to go home sick tonight, so he's given his apologies. Non-members attending, calm, I guess. And minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of September. If that is a true record, I wasn't here, but I don't know if I can sign it if other members say it's okay. Yeah, fine, thank you. I'll sign that later on. Any declarations of interest from anybody? Right, well let's move on to item 5 then, the Community Safety Partnership. I think, Nick, in light of the statement that's been issued today by Essex Police, I'm not sure if you've had sufficient time to really evaluate some of it, but perhaps you could start off by explaining to all of us here where you feel our mode of operation is now, how we're going to operate, and what we've got to do, and we'll spin off of what you tell us.
Well, I mean, just to put things in perspective, the original Assistant Director, Jodie Owen Hughes, who was responsible for this area, has obviously left the council's employment. So we're in a bit of a transition, let's say. So I won't profess to be fully up to speed with everything, but realising there are some issues potentially in terms of the police's ability to deal with certain things like antisocial behaviour, which they deem as, or may deem as, low level if there's no threat of harm or risk in that sense. So what their, as far as I'm aware, what their sort of attitude is to that is to refer these things onto other organisations, including Rochford District Council. Problem we have is that we also don't have much in terms of resource in order to deal with that. The question we have, though, in terms of what we're doing now in terms of business planning and all the rest of it is that our place to do more of that, or should it be our place to pressure the police to do more, or other agencies? And those are the kinds of things we need to look at. I don't think there are any simple answers to this, really. I don't know what members wanted to explore in particular.
I mean, I think the first question that I've got, and then I'll pass it around. At what stage or how long do you think it will be before we get an assistant director who will take responsibility for some of this area?
Well, the assistant director it's out to internal advert at the moment, which closes, may have closed already. I've been off for a week and a bit on paternity leave, but looking at the odd email. So that I think we've got a few internal applicants, so we have to see what happens there. There may be potential interviews this Friday for an interim post for 6 months, like we did for the finance and the legal role when that came up. Failing that, Chairman, we will look to recruit a full post externally. We can't find one internally, but that, as you know, could take some time given notice periods, interview processes, adverts, and all the usual process. So it could be fairly quick if it's internal, or it could be several months if it's external. Is the answer to that, Chairman.
And have we established? I mean, they've talked about low, medium risk as ISB.
Yeah.
At what point do we feel that I mean, you've already said that we're limited on the resources we have available to start with. We're possibly looking at, let's say, the worst scenario, 3 to 4 months before we get potentially perhaps a new AD.
Yeah.
Are we looking to increase our staff within the unit anyway? And what do we do if this low medium risk ASB suddenly starts, because there's no action being taken by either us or the police, it moves from being low level to a much higher level? I'll throw that in, then I'll let the other boys and ladies go.
Again, it depends on what our role is. I mean, in terms of statutory role, I think there's a duty to be part of the community safety partnership, but other than that there is no role. So it's for us to determine what level of involvement we want with things like antisocial behaviour. The difficulty, the flip side of that, you could throw a lot of resource into it and have that kind of fairly responsive role, have out of hours, do all the rest of it, which obviously costs money, and then you have to reprioritise somewhere else. The problem is, if you're seen as a sort of fourth emergency service, is that a good thing or a bad thing? You know, should this be the police's role? And on that, Chairman, we have invited a couple of representatives from the police, senior representatives, to come and speak to the leader and deputy. I think Amar told me this earlier on, because we're not particularly happy with that response in terms of, you know, we'll just hand it over to Rochford. You know, there should be a more partnership approach to it, let's say, so they don't just divert, you know, calls and people on our doorstep when we're not geared up to deal with it. So that's happening as well.
Does anyone go on, Jay, if you want to pick up on this, then we go on.
Thanks, Nick. If I sort of go back a bit before we get into all the nuts and bolts and stuff. I'm just looking at the document, New Community Policing Teams for Rochford, and there's a number of issues here before we even get into why and what for, is because I'd like to know where there's been a consultation in all of this, or even a discussion with Rochford or any other district that come to that about their statement on this paper. For example, they make comments like 1,772 people visited Rayleigh Police Station counter. This comprises it's half of Basildon. That's quite considerable, because Basildon is a division of headquarters. And it's you know, I mean, I won't go into any more. And of those visitors to Rayleigh's front counter during this time, just 19 were reporting a crime. Now that seems to be their criteria, but it doesn't go on about whether it's lost property, whether there's issues, you know, other issues, which are a policing responsibility, providing documents, making statements. I mean, there's a number of issues, and they just seem to write this off, saying, oh, only 19 people come in and commit a crime. But there's more to policing than just crime, as we all know. But so I'm really interested to know really about the consultation process and how and what we've done. You say that there's going to be a meeting. I'm pleased to hear that, because I want to know what we're doing to respond to this statement, because it seems to me that they're just going to do away with PCSOs. They're going to make a joint partnership between Castle Point and Rochford, and with that number you couldn't police a section, never mind 2 districts. And it's interesting to know or understand how that's going to work, and that's really what I want to know before we even get into what our responsibilities are. The Environment Act, as you know, has got statutory responsibilities, housing has got statutory responsibilities, and all of those overlap with antisocial behaviour. That's we know that. But so what is it that the police are looking at for us to deal with? Because we come on to the confrontation, the personnel issue, there's insurances, equipment, as you pointed out, there's hourly response and all the rest of it, who records all of this, and if there is a taking of details, we don't have access to what the police have in terms of data protection. So I'm really interested to know where this consultation is going, or has it gone? Is it just a formal statement by the police and they're just writing it off to us? Because if it's so, I think, is this council going to take a strong lead in this and let the public know where we sit? Because I can see as a councillor that I'm going to have people coming to me about a number of issues, and I don't see that's my responsibility. So over to you, really. It's a mixture of number of questions, but it's about...
Yeah. I'm not sure if I've got all the answers, to be honest, Chairman. I mean, consultation, I'm not sure there was one, and if there was, it was before my time, so I've not seen one myself. So whether they've consulted on these changes, is something we can find out. I'm not sure if any other members have that information. I've certainly not seen anything in terms of where these stats come from in terms of visitors to Rayleigh, 19 crimes and all the rest of it. I don't know. Again, it's their document. They've produced this today and announced it to the world, so to speak. And in terms of taking things back to it, I think it'd be helpful for this committee to, through Michelle to minute in it and all the rest of it. Any particular questions you want raised with those senior officers at that meeting? That would be helpful if we can put those to them now.
John, go on. Yeah.
You don't normally walk round to the police station to report a crime, do you? If you're in your car and you don't have a mobile phone with you and you notice something, you may stop at the police station. But ordinarily, you'd contact the police by telephone, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, in the police's defence, they've got severe cuts hitting them. They're undertaking an exercise in prioritisation. It costs money to keep a station open, and they can divert that resource elsewhere. And having heard from the police, crime commissioner, he's moved away from bodies on the beats and having loads of police stations open because modern policing has changed since that'll be his
it may have changed, but it's a signal of weakness, isn't it?
Possibly.
If people see a police station has closed down, they'll rightly assume there's less police officers in the area and they're more at liberty to do as they like.
Possibly, although I imagine the statistics would show otherwise, but I wouldn't be able to answer that.
Can I ask Nick, where do we stand in relation to other councils? Is there going to be a joint council approach to the police, or are we all going to be doing our own little one-to-one conversations, or is there going to be some joined up thinking? Because if we're being asked to take on some of these issues, I mean, our bed partner is Castle Point, so how are we going to deal with them, and are we going to have a joint meeting, or is it just going to be Rochford talks to them, then they're going, then Castle Point then talks to the police? This is where I'm getting concerned that we're being used as a straw every time, and there's no sort of joined up thinking, and we're going to end up trying to justify a situation that none of us are geared up to deal with.
Well, that's right. It's a good point, Chairman. I mean, whatever we do, I think there's got to be a degree of partnership working. There is this community safety partnership with Castle Point. It's only right that we should work together to ask sort of appropriate questions of the police, and also potentially work jointly on any solution. It doesn't make sense sometimes to have lots of different people doing the same thing. So there could be something in that.
But have we got anything planned to?
Well, I don't know, is the answer, Chairman. I've not sat on the Community Safety Partnership. I know Graham Brown does. I'm not sure where they stand on this. I've not seen any literature through. I don't know if anyone else has. But it's another thing. My role here partly is or in the main, is to take away some things from today that I can take back, to the senior officers, to the Community Safety Partnership, to Graham Brown and whoever else, to say these are the issues. How are we going to deal with them? And I think that's a valid one. What's the Community Safety Partnership's view of this? There should be that kind of coordinated response. This is affecting Castle Point and us in the same way, I'd imagine.
No, it's not.
How should we deal with it?
So I was reading my briefing notes earlier, and I believe Canberra Island still has a police station that will be remaining open.
Right.
So it won't be affecting Castle Point in the same way it will be affecting Watford.
In terms of the response to low level.
Go on, Mike. You Mike, and then I'll come to you, Chris.
Okay, just a few questions initially. The letter originally from the was it assistant? I can't remember who it's from now. The Assistant Chief Constable was written on the 22nd of June.
Right.
Do you know when? And that was to the Chief Executive, Amar Dave,
Right.
advising this was going to happen.
Right.
When were you first aware of this?
I think that's probably personally first aware when John Mason contact me directly about the incident in Hawkwell at the leisure centre.
Are you aware
Yeah.
at any time whether or not the assistant director had any action on this? Was there actions in place?
No idea.
So
To be honest,
you've no idea if there probably isn't, or would you have seen it if? Would you expect to have seen it if, before coming to this meeting, if there was action being taken?
No, not at all.
No?
No, wouldn't have expected to see anything.
Really? So you wouldn't have expected to see something around this? I'm a bit disappointed because this letter was written on the 22nd of June, and we did actually meet the CSP. Was it 7th of July? And they didn't mention it at all at that meeting either. Would that surprise you that it wasn't mentioned at that meeting?
Well, as I said, I don't know how the CSP works. I've had no involvement in it.
Right.
In terms of, so my role here is just to sort of take things away. Until, today and very recently, I've had no involvement with CSP. So I don't know how they operate. Is the answer, and how they work, what they do, what the reporting lines are if there is something that comes out, and who it goes through, and all the rest of it. Do you sit on it yourself?
Yeah. Is there a reason why the portfolio holder couldn't attend tonight?
Do
we know? I thought they might be more up to date. I'm just getting a sense that we're not really going anywhere with the questions at the moment. I can ask questions, I don't think you'll know the answers. It's
no, I mean, that's
I'm coming
right.
from. Which
No, that's right. As I said, my role is I'm not going to have the answers, so I don't want to raise your expectations in that way. What I can do is take away, these points, and it sounds like there are a few.
I think there is a genuine concern from all of us as to how, as a community, we are going to address these issues that, by and large, are being dumped onto us.
Yes.
We don't, just as a quick oversight, we don't seem to have our own house in order with regard to an AD who will be responsible for this. We don't have the resources within our own system to deal with ASB. We don't have the right people to deal with ASB, because I'm not quite sure what ASB low risk is and medium risk, and when it suddenly becomes criminal damage, and how we fit into all this system. We don't seem to have a system that, if there are issues, and we pretty much know that it's going to be in predominantly our open spaces in the evenings or at weekends, and if the police are not going to be around, we are going to be the front line, so to speak. We've got to tell the public this is the situation, if that is what the situation is, when you've spoken to Castle Point and all the rest of it, and how we're going to deal with it, how we're going to record this. Has there been an increase? I mean, we know we've got issues in Rochford and Clements Hall already, and I don't get the impression that they're going to go downhill. I don't know if there's any way that we're recording these issues. I understand from conversations with our councillors yesterday that there's already concerns about potential vigilantes setting up in certain areas in Rochford because of low-level ASB as it's described, but that, to my mind, sets a downward spiral, because you know as well as I do that if a resident gets hurt, then we've got an even bigger problem on our hands. So
yeah, I mean, it's the whole issue is needs to be worked out. What, as I said at the start, what is our role as a council in this? Are we at the extreme end going to be like a fourth emergency service and be available 24 hours, 7 days a week to police this? And we go and turn up on site and then raise that expectation in terms of dealing with the issue and having some powers to do something. That's one end of the spectrum. Or is it something completely different? Which is where we are now. And what is it? What is our role? What do we want to provide residents? Are we willing to then fund that or not? And if we are, how do we do that? I think what you mentioned earlier, Chairman, that partnership approach is something which needs to be looked at. The police aren't saying they're totally walking away from, I don't think, from antisocial behaviour. They're just there needs to be kind of strong evidence that there's a threat of risk of harm or a catalogue of offence. Otherwise, they're just going to place priority on it. They've got other things which they deem more serious that they have to attend to first. You know, they can't be everywhere all the time. But we need to think very carefully. What is our role in community safety? What is it we want to do in that respect? And if we go down a certain line, then the resident will, the police will come to rely on us, and the residents will come to rely on us in order to do something. And have we got the resource and ability to actually use those powers in the right way and enforce if necessary if the police aren't there? I think at the moment, in the past, it's been very much a kind of monitoring role, and if something happens, then the police would have come in and finished the job off. So we need to be a little bit careful about that. And,
do you want to fire away, Chris?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, from what I've seen briefly tonight, I believe Canby Police Station won't have a front counter either.
Yeah, right.
So there'll be nowhere in Rochford and Castle Point for us to go and see the police. I just wonder at the mentality of an organisation that can tell me that there were 6,601 people visiting Southend Police Station in 2 months. I wouldn't just clearly they're collecting statistics for some purpose. This seems a bit bizarre to me, unless they're already preparing their press releases in advance. If we are going to go down the road of trying to run an anti-social behaviour team or unit or force, I think the first thing we need to know is what powers do we need, and have we got those powers? And secondly, how much it would cost. I think it's going to be very hard for us to pay for it, but I think we need to know what sort of force we need, numbers of people, that kind of thing. I don't know if we know yet this community policing team of about, I think, 10 people and 4 CSOs who are going to have a pretty tough agenda of protecting the public from harm, preventing and reducing crime, bringing criminals to justice, engaging with the public, and ensuring the public are satisfied with the service they receive. Good luck with that. But I think, I imagine we don't know yet who will be the inspector in charge of that team, the sergeants, the constables. But I think if we're going to have any success in trying to deal with these things, we need to have a very good relationship with those individuals. That's going to be important. Following from what you were saying earlier, Mr. Vice Chairman, about Rochford and egging of cars and that kind of thing, I think Facebook's a two-edged sword. You can get information. Hopefully, if we've got a community policing team, not just councillors but officers will be monitoring Facebook, seeing what's going on. That's a good source of information. But it does allow people to get very angry, very upset, and it could lead to vigilantism. And that's the thing. So we've got to bear in mind we are in that new age. Apart from that, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think the cutbacks are going to work. I think we're going to have a poor police service. I think we're going to struggle to do antisocial behaviour, whatever happens. I think and I don't think the answers lie at county level. I think the answer lies in central government. And I think if we're concerned, we should feed information back to our MPs across Essex and say, this isn't working, too much austerity, change your plans.
Mike, did you want to come back on anything?
Yeah, I have to say I agree with Councillor Black, particularly on the latter part of his statement, entirely. Essex Police apparently, or will work closely with partners to deal with this. Who will they be dealing with in the absence of an assistant director? I think it's important enough that it should be dealt with at least at director level at this point.
Well, I mean,
which is yourself, I think.
It could be at the moment. Yes, I mean that can easily be done, and I mean, we are. I've already met with Luke Collison a number of times on this and other matters. So I do have an easy area commander of the whole thing, and he's he's quite a sensible chap, and he's the one who's coming down to meet leader deputy, I think, with someone else.
I just think it's important that we are very proactive in the consultation over this and around the partnership working, because I think maybe in the past we've been waiting for it to happen, and I think it's important that we tell the police what we need and what the problems are. There's obviously used to be an issue around, we were going to have a hub at Raleigh Police Station, which I assume the police have probably forgotten about. If they're closing the counter service, which would make the hub a bit ineffectual, I think. So I think there's, you just wonder if the police are at the levels these decisions are being taken, are aware of the partnerships being in place already, which are failing, it seems. So I think it's very important that the director level is involved proactively at this stage.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to, try and take that forward, and I think you're right. We have to be proactive. And I think with a lot of things, you can work smartly on these things. Someone like Luke Collison, senior police officer, he is very good on the ball, and he will be open to sort of innovative solutions to this. So it may be that we can do things slightly differently to how we did things before. Something like that.
Can I suggest, Nick, and I'll give everybody the opportunity here. I mean, obviously, this has only just landed on your lap.
Yeah.
You're very much aware of it. Following your meeting with the police and subsequent appointments of ADs or however it goes, could we ask you to come back in December and give us an update on where we stand? If there's no opportunity to give us an update beforehand, but I'll give members the opportunity to ask Nick any other issues you want to raise that can be addressed, that he can come back to us with it at the December session. Okay, go.
Thank you. Some of it's already been taken, but I'll come back to, it's a joint thing really. To do about liability with all of this, and I'm really interested to know where we're going, because there's you probably know this, the Pilkington case. There's the woman that killed herself and her daughter and that laid a legal responsibility on everybody about liability. You can't ignore that. And ultimately there were suggestions there that there are, because what the Pilkington case was a woman and her daughter who was mentally affected, and they killed themselves because they didn't have any support on antisocial behaviour. And there's big criticism on it, and the police got slaughtered, etc. And in there was a suggestion that if you don't do something, you could end up being corporately corporate manslaughter. If it was liability was shown. So they put a lot of pressure on everybody because of the Pilkington case, about antisocial behaviour. And that seems to have been pushed aside. Then we had, when the Crime and Disorder Act came out in 2003, it introduced the CDRPs, the Crime and Disorder Reduction Partnerships, which then ultimately got changed to the CSPs. Now I was on the CSP from a different role for the council, but not this council, from another council. And I found that I was going this council, but I was going as a town councillor, parish councillor. And I sat there in these meetings, and basically I was being told, not involved, I was being told what was going on, and I'd report back. So it had been diluted from this sort of LSP situation, strategic partnership with a CDRP, with a governance, and we had all the partners, all the strategic and other partners coming together, deciding about antisocial, looking at monies and where we're going to allocate resources and what we're going to do. There was a big plan, and everybody was involved, all the different authorities, and it was magic. It worked well. Now I understand costs are involved, but it used to control the cost and the action. But what I'm coming to is, we seem to have divulged now where we haven't got a CDS. We call it a CSP, but no one's on it. Because they dissolved it. And that's what I want to know is, where we had all this sort of actions, we had all this partnership, we had all this discussion and so on, regardless of what the content was. Now we've got nothing at all. We're sitting here, we don't have anything. And I mean, we haven't got an important meeting. You'll come here, this is not criticism, I'll put out. You come here this evening to a review committee that I understood we were going to discuss all of this. We've got no other representation, not even from the police. We can't ask any questions, and all you can do is take back what we're discussing. And for me, it shows how important this issue is in respect of our management, the police, and everybody else, because obviously no one cares. They're just passing the buck, and we're all sitting here saying, how, why, what? And that's the question. And I feel a little bit let down, to be frank with you.
Well, I think you've got the gist, Nick. Unless anybody else has got any other points they want to raise, you've gone one. But we do have some serious, genuine concerns as to where, as a council, we're going to go and how our residents are going to feel. Okay, we know this potentially is a low crime area and all the rest of it, but there is a whole raft of issues, most of which I think have been brought up to you this evening, that we would like addressed or answers to, or some sort of guidance as to how the council, the police and or other partners, whoever they might be, are going to work together in the future, because you know that we as a district council, to me, do not seem to be geared up to take on what is expected of us, out of hours stuff, recording and all the rest of it, people who are authorised to take action, whatever that action may be. So, Mike, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
I think it's possibly repeat what I said. I just want to add that I think it's very important that we urgently come up with a short-term action plan on this. At the moment, there are problems being reported. The police are apparently not turning out to what they regard as low-level antisocial behaviour, although some people regard it as higher than that. And at the moment, the public don't know where to turn to. And as the chairman says, it could turn to vigilantism, certainly on Facebook page. And I think it's very important we are able to tell the public where to go, even if we're telling the police that in the short term we're going to come back to you anyway. I think it's important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I'm not here to defend the police by any means. I mean, I'm quite. I don't agree necessarily with all that they're doing, and especially the passing the buck, if I put it sort of crudely as that. You know, it's not right that residents push from pillar to post, because it's not their fault. You know, they perceive. You know, there's different threats of harm and different levels. It could be low-level knockdown, ginger type stuff to serious kind of abuse. And if you're a resident, whatever it is, it feels. You know, you feel it. So the worst thing to do is be pushed from pillar to post, get an out-of-hours response line, and then it goes nowhere, and you have to wait 3 days for a response. Clearly, that's not on it. But the question is, what is our role in that? You know, do we push the police to do more? Do we work in partnership, or do we gear up our resources and spend money on it and have a fully fledged team that's all singing and all dancing? And I don't know where that lies at the moment. Well, that's something that's
Can I request, Nick, that when you've got anything that you can tell, particularly this committee, but the councillors in general, something is made into the public domain, so that at least we know where we're all going. Jamie, you go.
Yeah. Sorry, it's more of an observation and thought, really, but I think generally, I mean, there's crime as in statistics and evidence of crime, but there's also the issue of perception of crime. And actually, I think largely Essex Police and other police forces probably have failed miserably to tackle the perception of crime. Antisocial behaviour, when you go knocking on people's doors at election time, and that is the one thing that comes up repeatedly, something that's never really been put to bed. And actually I see this as a bit of an opportunity really for the council to change that perception, because actually the figures are low, but that's not the perception people have. Generally people's perception is antisocial behaviour is a huge issue, there's a lot of it, it's never being tackled, it's not important to the police, and there might be some truth in that. Perhaps when Michael talks about the fact that the police don't bother attending certain calls. So perhaps now this is a time for the council to take it, you know, in hand and change people's perception. Maybe that should be the first thing we look to tackle, because in terms of crime rates, as the chairman's pointed out, we all know it's quite a low area for crime, but is that message actually getting out to people? You know, because already I've been looking on Facebook as we speak. You know, this subject is all over Facebook like a rash. We're all sitting here being talked about, being slated as we speak, and I think maybe the council's first aim, looking perhaps at a short-term plan, should be to try and tackle the people's perception of antisocial rather than trying to actually deal with the statistics and dealing with crime.
A couple more questions, and I think Nick's pretty much got the gist of it. Brian, Jack, and Chris, and we call it a day.
I think technology will help a lot of this. Body cameras, CCTV, etc. Even these, where you can actually take photographs of people doing things, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, all the questions that we've asked are relevant, obviously, but once again, obviously, if we haven't got anybody in charge of it, we need to start somewhere, and I think we should be trying as quick as possible to get somebody in charge so that a momentum can start, because obviously at the moment we're just shooting in the dark, aren't we? If there's nobody we can talk to because we haven't got anybody there that can take our questions forward or start the ball process rolling, we just talk about one another.
I think Nick's got that one, Brian.
Just to make it clear, it's not like we've got nobody in antisocial behaviour. We have got almost one post, as you both see, who is our antisocial behaviour coordinator. He's an experienced chap, and he does go on the community safety partnership. He does coordinate things. He does respond. Hence the Hawkwell incident was responded to, although it was a holiday at the time. So there is that. Just to come back to Councillor Lawman's point about the Pilkington case. I mean, it's a valid point, but I think in all of this, and again, I'm not defending the police, but they would say their approach to it, that sort of serious the threat kind of angle, would hopefully pick up those serious cases, like Councillor Lawman mentioned, which would be responded to, wouldn't just be left.
Well, yeah, but we have concerns, Nick, that it's going to fall in the crack.
Maybe, and that's
our concerns. I think that where are the parameters for some of these things? Yeah. And at the moment, there are no parameters. It seems to by and large, most of us at the police have said, well, this is not what we're going to do anymore, and over to you.
Well, that's right. But when you're looking, obviously, as a lawyer, when you're looking at duty of care, again, you've got to be a little bit careful, because the more you do take on, the more the expectation rises that you are there to do it. So if you fail, then it comes on you.
But at the end of the day, our residents expect somebody to do it.
That's right, and therein lies the question: who is that? Should it be
Jack?
someone else?
You got one more question, and then Chris.
I thought you were nominated, Jack.
Well, it's a long question. No, seriously, it is the concern, in as much as I'm sitting here listening to all this, and obviously I've got my own feelings about it all. I don't really want that to be, but it seems to me that we as an authority seem to be worrying about all of this, and the police are not. It seems to me that they've made a statement over to you, and here we are sitting discussing this, and it seems as though it's the tail wagging the dog. And I haven't seen heard any talk. I'll come back to the consultation, where we've sat down and discussed how it could be dealt with, how we can take this forward, any form of strategy. There's been nothing at all that we can discuss. I mean, my own personal experiences is that you maybe get a number of minor ASBs, but they're usually attached to serious ASBs. How do you know they're not linked to other incidents? We don't have that network, we don't have that software, but the police do. And that's what used to happen, and it worked very well. And I'm not saying we shouldn't work with the police, I'm not suggesting that whatsoever. But it seems to me that we're working back to front. And what should be happening is we go back to the old neighbourhood action plans, is where the police, not necessarily lead, I'm not suggesting that they take all the responsibility, but we should be working closer together, using their existing policy procedures, but no one's sitting down talking about all of this. We've got no strategy whatsoever. All we're sitting here doing is worrying about definition.
This is what we're asking Nick
that's
to
my
do.
point.
And we have that meeting precisely that purpose, because we're not happy with that.
So who's going to discuss all of this?
Well, Nick is, hopefully.
Amar, myself, the deputy, and whoever else wants to go.
Yeah. Chris, last one.
Good point from Jamie about fear of crime. I've just been looking at the police.uk figures. I mean, as far as for the last 12 months, in the Rayleigh and Holbridge area, 179 burglaries, which, if you reckon, was 17,900 houses in Rayleigh and Holbridge, that works out to one burglary. Your house is burglary every 100 years, which is kind of reassuring, I think. And I was thinking, if we have posters up about dealing with chewing gum and dog mess. There's been a few posters in the high street saying, on average, you'll get burgled, a Raleigh resident will get burgled every 100 years. Or, on average, if you leave your car in one of our car parks, it will get burgled every so often. I worked it out once, it was every 80 years, something like that, you know. That might help a little bit. But other than that, I'm really concerned.
Yeah. Perhaps you can have a word with communications department as well, Nick, and see what we can get out in the big wide world, in all sorts of areas.
Isn't it a bit like everybody was saying the crime's going to go up when all the street lights go out? The reality is it didn't.
Well, no, but again, it is the perception.
Yeah, but I mean,
But there is
perception is one thing, reality is another.
but there is an underlying thing here that crime could go up, and we haven't got anything in place to deal with it. I mean, we pretty much knew, any of us that have had any dealings with the police over the years, we pretty much knew when the main burglary time was, and it isn't when it's pitch dark. So on that aspect, there was a certain amount of historical evidence to say, but this is an entirely different animal. Anyway, members, can we move on? I think we've given Nick enough to get our feel, our concerns.
That's been helpful, Chair. Just one last thing. I mean, it is I think Councillor Hoy's point about the strategic approach to community safety partnership. I think I'll take myself onto one of those meetings to see exactly what they discuss and what their approach is to these things, to see if they're, firing on all cylinders, because I think there should be some leadership there. If that is a strategic body that is supposed to be leading these things, where's the leadership there? It may be that they are doing some good things, it's just not trickled down, but I'll find out for myself.
Okay, Nick. Right. If we move on, members, to item number 6, which I think really, Nick, is back to you and
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go on too long unless members want me to, but just to really sum up, perhaps to those members who haven't had the pleasure of REPA in the past, this is basically a covert surveillance, a policy of authorities like councils, when they undertake covert surveillance, or if they undertake covert surveillance, then they need to do it very carefully and under very strict guidelines and a policy, which we've obviously got. And the oversight of that policy in a kind of fairly loose way is done by this committee, and it is also independently inspected every 2 to 3 years by the Office of Surveillance Commissioner, who are normally ex-High Court judges, so they know their stuff and they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. This legislation was intended for terrorism and that kind of thing, but it's kind of trickled down to us as well. So we were inspected. We got a very favourable report, which I'm pleased to say. They commended members and the council for letting members get involved in it and have this general oversight, which is good. They commended the training. And they even recommended us to another council, which was good news. There were some minor amendments, recommendations which emerged from that report, which I've sort of encapsulated towards the end for your approval. And at the same time, I normally update members on our usage of REPA, i.e. where we seek to get an authorisation to carry out covert surveillance. We haven't had any authorisations for the past few years now, and in fact our sort of scope to do covert surveillance is pretty limited. It's got to be for a criminal offence which carries a 6-month custodial, of which we don't really have many in the council that we have the powers to enforce that carries that kind of sentence. It may be fly tipping and a couple of other social security type fraud offences about it, but we don't really do that anymore. So we are a sparing user. We do REPA well, as independently testified, but there are a few adjustments needed, and in light of the changes of personnel, a few adjustments there. So I'll leave it at that. If you've got any questions, members, happy to take those.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of us that have been on this committee in years gone by, we've been down this road very much before. It's been explained to us in detail. From my experience, there are the necessary alterations due to the restructuring of the council, names changing, responsibilities changing. If anybody else has got any questions you want to ask of Nick, please go ahead. But I think pretty much this is a routine approval operation.
And I would just add, Chairman, that there is some training kindly organised by Paul in January.
29th of January.
29th of January.
I haven't actually written out to everybody.
Okay, yeah.
I did put it on the brief, and I will be going.
The speaker is very good on that. You know, he's been tried and tested. He's quite engaging. So I'd recommend you come on that. It's quite an interesting half a day session. so hopefully worth your while.
Okay. Do we need to officially recommend a resolve that we agree with this? If everybody's in agreement, then the wording is, it is proposed that the committee resolves to note the council's annual usage of RIPA, however you want to brand that. It is proposed that the committee recommends to the council that the amendments to the council's RIPA policy set out in 4.1 above are approved. Agreed?
Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. You're very welcome to stay if you wish.
I've got a little baby to get back to, so better do that. Priority.
So hi, it's called Famous Grouse.
Where's my worksheet? Key decisions.
To follow Andrew.
I just think we should go back to the old CDRP type of style,
Do you want to
where we all sit down in the committee, look at all the issues with these, and come up with an...
Thanks very much, Nick.
No problem. Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for having us.
No, I appreciate that.
Come back to you on those CSP.
Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
Cheers.
Okay, members, if we can move on to the key decisions document. I'll let Paul lead on this one as we work through it.
We've got some spares here, don't we?
Yeah, all the studies.
I've got it here, it's key decisions.
My laptop has been broken, this thing for a month, so I've got to go in again now, so I haven't been able to
It's fixed now, isn't it?
No, this is the key decisions document.
and one or two others yesterday, and we all played with it, and we managed to get there again. So yeah, so that was good. Yeah. So I haven't got anything to take away. But it's surprising when you haven't got it and everything goes to it. Yeah.
Right, key decision document. The first one, first two, are the two items that you called in back in June, July time, and there will be decisions coming on those two. The second one, obviously, because it's the Assistant Director, Community and Housing Services, vacant post, so hopefully if they appoint someone on Friday, that it might start moving again on that one. Alright, turning over the page to 515, the home strategy, that was also on the key decision document in July, and at the moment they're waiting for the new Assistant Director Housing Planning, and it starts mid-November from what I understand.
What, 26th was it?
Is that the new woman?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
So, you know, they don't want to do anything until she's had a chance to look at everything.
So October's a completely fictitious date in there then?
I think it'll go back further than October.
Yeah, I might have realised that already.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably more realistic to look at January by the time she's had a chance to look at everything. So the only new... Actually, there's two new items on there. Both Andrew Lowing, Strategic Partnership Officers. Advice Services contract, this is where they put out for tender the advice services contract that the CAB currently do, and they're looking at whether the CAB or another organisation might want to take it on. But the decision has to be made in December, and that's why it's there. And then the last one, the 1315, the voluntary sector grants. Every year that's a regular one on there, and again the decision has to be made in December. Yes, Chris.
So can I go back to the home strategy?
Yep.
just clarify what that is about? Is it dealing with sort of housing from a social point of view, or is it dealing with housing in a development plan point of view?
According to his risk of not taking the decision, it sets out the overarching framework for dealing with housing demand and housing need within the district. Strategy will provide clarity around the principles and arrangements for dealing with housing matters in the district. So I imagine it's going to be social housing, etc. The whole.
Is it the SMART?
I'm not so sure it goes as far as the SMART, but probably the SMART feeds into it.
Yeah, I mean, the decision maker's portfolio hold of a community, so I assume it's not.
This wasn't one that June had just stepped into the booth, was it? And we asked her to go back.
No, that was housing allocation policy.
Above it? Okay.
Yeah, and that is still ongoing.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's still Councillor Lumley's portfolio though.
Who's she near?
I think it's fair to say that, you know, we are struggling this year with the restructuring to make any headway on a lot of these items, as we've just seen with Nick. You know, as much as we will try and eke out information and try and review some of these issues, it's fairly obvious that the right people ain't in the right place. And to be honest, we're asking questions of people that really haven't got the answers for us.
I'd like to say, just as on a good side, I went to a Finchfield meeting this morning, and Mark and all the rest of it, you know, the department came in full of information, full of support, loads of actions. It was very, very positive. So we've got a new assistant director in there, you know, in White. Obviously,
Harwood White.
Harwood White.
Matt Harwood
White. I said Mark, didn't I?
Yeah. I was
Sorry.
wondering.
But he turned up with his guy, and he was really positive, you know. So I'm not down at all.
No, but I think there are a number of areas, Jack, that we've tried to ask questions, and new portfolio holders, new assistant directors is making life difficult for us to elicit information. You know, we will have to do the best we can this year to do this, and hopefully, you know, we will be able to elicit some information. I think the meeting we've just had with Nick sort of gave him more questions than he'd expected, to be honest. I mean, he's just walked into it, we've just walked into it, but there's a dozen of us and one of him. So, anything else then on this key decision document? If not, we'll move on to the work plan, Paul, and see what we got lined up for the next meeting
is Michelin's Farm, the all committee review, and you'll see I sent out a meeting invite for next week, basically to formulate questions. You know, so you can prepare questions and we can feed them in. I've got tentatively someone from Essex County, from Planning Enforcement, the Waste Division. We've got someone from the team leader from Planning Enforcement here, ourselves. Environment Agency have declined me. He's given me a written answer, but and I've got environmental health lined up, and I'm trying to get someone from legal at the moment.
Is that for the November?
Yeah, that'll be for the November one.
And then December we've just included Nick coming back to us as well.
But I would also think possibly some of those things on the December one will get pushed back.
Homelessness.
Yeah, because of the assistant director post. That's why I originally had them in for this meeting, and we've had to move them, and I think we might have to move them again, and it's getting to be a movable feast at the moment.
Sorry, sorry, mate. I was just going to comment because we did ask if he could come back in December, didn't we?
Yeah.
And that would obviously affect your little list there.
I think as Paul said, Jack, we're going to be this year. We are going to be
busy.
Well, we're trying to address them when people are in a position to answer the questions that we're going to put to them. It's no, I mean, you know, Nick could answer nothing tonight. All he took was a succession of questions from us to come back and answer. And we found this the other day with June and or the last meeting, but one where it was with June and Jodie. Similar scenario, but now Jodie's gone.
Yeah, but I was just observing there, complaint process to the council you've got listed. I mean, that could be an overlap to ASB. Because there'd have to be a complaint process if we're going to adopt it.
I think you're very, you're linking two things that don't really go together. I'm hoping that complaints process will come to the December meeting. I'm hoping, but there are other reasons why that one might not.
Okay.
But we can't tie in a complaint procedure, particularly with ASB, if we don't know what the parameters of our responsibility are to start with.
Yes.
Okay.
Paul, excuse me.
Yeah.
The Michelin's Farm meeting, will we be touching on the disruption to the transport network, the roads and the railway?
If that's the area you want to go down, I mean, it's basically looking at the council's actions prior to the fire. And was there something we could have done?
Council's inactions.
You know, that we didn't do. That's the issue. Yes, I know there was transport disruption, but the brief is really more about the council's action, because we couldn't. Once the fire was there, that's what was going to happen. But it's the lead up to the
right.
And from what I understand, we have to be very careful, don't we, about what we talk about now, because that could create issues further down the road. But we can talk up and question what happened up to the fire.
Right. Okay.
But you can't actually discuss possible scenarios after. You know what's going to happen now. That's taboo.
Okay.
Chris.
Okay. Can you explain to me why something is taboo for the review committee? And secondly, can I ask a factual question, which is how many tyres are on the site there now?
Loads.
Yes.
Only because it would become P&C and it ties. We're not in public records. You're not going to discuss what possibilities you would do to the site. You know, that would have to be P&C.
Okay, I understand that.
And that would tie it, you know.
I understood there are loads of tyres, but I liked. It'd be nice if we could have some factual information, some minute information on that.
I go past it on the train every day, twice a day.
Yeah.
Be there with your camera out the window.
Well, now you say that, I think I did try, but I didn't get a good photo.
Go on, Joe.
Just this is again just a confirmation.
I can always do it if you want.
On the work plan, it's got the Michelin's Farm meeting down as the 3rd of November.
Yeah.
And on your emails, it's got. You've penciled it in for the 13th of November. For the first meeting.
Yeah, 14th. That's the.
And the 14th of October is in full. So is it the 13th of November or the 3rd?
3rd of November. Did I write?
Yeah, you've got 13.
Did I write 13th of November? I'm right.
Yeah, okay.
I was just checking.
Yeah. I was trying to put.
And obviously your diary is the 14th.
Yeah.
So the 14th of October is the informal one.
Yeah, 14th of October is the informal one. I was going to do it on the 13th of October.
Well, I thought it was the 3rd. You must
Yeah,
have
but there was
mentioned that to me.
but planning took precedence, so I had to move it to the 14th, and that's why I think when I've gone to put November in, it's Freudian slip. It is the 3rd of November.
3rd of November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we also clarify, Paul, taking Chris's question, why the scenario that would create the issues if we start talking about what might happen in future?
Yeah.
I think there's a difference about what might happen, but I think it's important about. I can't see why we can't ask factual questions. Just to establish facts now.
But let's make sure we know what the parameters are, because we don't want to. And we can ask these questions on the next week.
Yeah.
and we can then Paul come back to us at the meeting to tell us whether or what we can ask and what we can't ask.
Chairman, I might not be able to get to the meeting next week, but I will be at the meeting in November. But
Well, I'm sure you can talk to Mike or me or somebody.
But I would like a factual update on how many tyres are on site.
Chris, if you'd like to send whatever you want asked to Paul, copy to me or Jerry.
Well, I've just said that.
Number of tyres.
Sorry.
Joe.
Sorry, I just mouthed to Paul. I thought, who's going to be coming? Do you know to the third?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you just said.
I did go through that.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
that was the county rep, the waste enforcement, our team leader, planning enforcement, probably environmental health, which would be Martin Howlett, and then I'm trying to get someone from legal.
No, well,
I
okay.
tried to get Environment Agency, but they turned me down. They've just given me a written.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
But if there's anything else, Chris,
Yeah, sure.
let me or Paul know, and we'll discuss it on next week and make sure it's raised for you, or we have the answers or whatever.
I will do that, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, members. Well, if in the absence of anything else, close the meeting at 8:30.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.